Alright, let's get right into it. It is no secret that the coronavirus is sweeping across the globe. The viral infection was started in Wuhan, China, has now hit the US, and pretty much every public place, including sports stadiums, has to take the necessary precautions to limit the threat of the virus. Sports leagues from sumo wrestling to Serie A and Ronaldo at Juventus have already played behind closed doors, with the NBA now following suit with this recent announcement. The original plan to limit the attendance to 0 spectators and only essential personnel was laughed at by players like LeBron James. And that is understandable because there have always been fans at NBA games. Of course, LeBron has since walked back those comments. But yes, there have always been fans at NBA games. The lowest attended NBA game was attended by 700 plus people, which actually doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a decent crowd. And objectively, it's a lot more than 0 people. That was a Minnesota Timberwolves home game this year. Nah, I'm just messing. That was a game way long ago. That was a game between the San Francisco Warriors and the Detroit Pistons on March 4th, 1965. Unfortunately, closed-door games have been somewhat of a common practice overseas, especially in the world of football, or soccer. Thanks to football hooliganism, violence, and sometimes downright racism from fans, games will be barred off from attending by spectators. Government football bodies have in the past often taken a measure to ban an entire fan base for a game, no matter how few or how many were involved in a previous incident. For whatever reason, this is not commonplace in the NBA. For example, at the Malice in the Palace, the infamous fight between Steven Jackson, the Artist, formerly known as Ron, Meta World Peace, and the fans, that was a huge national story and a disgrace for everyone involved. But instead of a one-game banning of all the fans from the stadium, only the individuals involved were dealt with accordingly. You see this all the time in the US with fans taunting and abusing players, getting banned, rather than an entire fan base getting banned. Perhaps this is a result of a lone wolf mentality for American fans misbehaving, while certain hooliganism is in other parts of the world, it's more of a mob mentality. For whatever reason, the world may never know if that's exactly true. And that's not to take away from the passionate soccer fans worldwide, but there are definitely some bad apples, which is understandable because every fan base has some bad apples. Anyway, long story short, there may be 0 spectators attending NBA games for the foreseeable future. And I know what you're thinking, 0 fans, what is this, a Minnesota Timberwolves home game? Alright, I'll give it a rest. Kinda like the Timberwolves have the past few years. Okay, done with the jokes, let's get into the video because there is precedent for these games, as several important games in the past throughout the world, pre-corona, have actually taken place, so let's get right into it. Starting off, 1980, a great year, a European Cup Winners' Cup game between Castilla and my boys, West Ham United, may have been the very first documented closed-door game of the modern era. I know what you're thinking, European Cup Winners' Cup, what is that? Well, today it's actually known as nothing because it doesn't exist anymore. The second leg of this round between the two teams was known as the Ghost Match, which I know all my ghosters out there are going to love, because no fans were admitted due to violence that happened in the first leg. On September 17th, 1980, West Ham, an English club, traveled to Castilla, a Spanish club, and the 1980s was a huge time for hooliganism in football, and the West Ham manager even begged the fans in the local paper to behave at this away match. Of course, after the brews started flowing and West Ham blew their lead, the fans went nuts. 50 fans were ejected from the stadium, around 50 fans, and tragically one supporter was even killed outside when a bus ran him over. The next leg of the cup was to be played with a spectator count of 0 per UEFA's ruling, which of course hurt West Ham's pockets deeply, as their stadium could hold 36,000 people. Official attendance was about 202 people, which was just essential staff, players, and various media. West Ham actually came back and won on aggregate, which goes to show, what did the fans actually learn? Probably nothing. It goes to show crime does sometimes pay. Fast forward to a match, September 1982, Aston Villa's first title defense of the European Cup. Yes, Aston Villa did once win a European Cup. Was supposed to be played behind closed doors due to violence that occurred in a semi-final the year prior. Violence from Villa fans occurred against Anderlecht, which UEFA hit him with a 14.5k euro punishment and a stadium closure. Villa went on to beat Besiktas 3-1. Moving along to 2009, and here's where the even darker side of European football comes out. Juventus, one of the top clubs in the world historically, was ordered to play a game behind closed doors after fans racially abused soccer superstar Mario Balotelli. Sadly for Balotelli, an Italian born in Italy to Ghanaian parents, this was a theme that followed him throughout his career. But at least that year Balotelli got the last laugh, as Inter Milan, his team, finished above Juventus in the standings. Continuing with this theme for whatever reason, in 2011, by far the funniest event happened, on December 21st to be exact, a match between Ajax and AZ. After taking a 1-0 lead, a young Ajax fan who was drunk ran onto the pitch and karate kicked an AZ goalkeeper, who then proceeded to kick the shit out of him. The goalie, Esteban Alvarado, was sent off, red carded, and his team completely left after that. Ajax had to apologize for not having proper security, the fan was banned from the club for life, and the game was replayed behind closed doors 1 month later. Okay, now back to Spain. Before an October 2017 game, the Barcelona Football Club demanded that their La Liga game be moved due to potential violence surrounding the Catalonia independence referendum being declared unconstitutional and not being recognized by the ruling Spanish government. The La Liga governing board said, no, you gotta play, and Barcelona said, fuck you, we'll have it behind closed doors, and not let anybody know until 25 minutes before kickoff, despite thousands of fans waiting outside. Barcelona won 3-0, and their very large stadium looked very, very strange, completely empty. One of the most infamous closed-door games in basketball pre-corona, and potentially the only one to ever exist, was of course as a result of the Philippine basketball team getting in a brawl with the Australian basketball team. Of course, we all remember this fight. Thonmaker throwing the high and fly, whatever that shit was. Joe Rogan probably wasn't impressed. 13 players were suspended, mostly from the Philippines team, and they were forced to play their next home game against Qatar months later behind closed doors. That happened in July of 2018. Finally, we get to North America. Briefly, some golf matches and AHL hockey games have been moved to closed door or closed outside, whatever you want to call it, for golf due to weather. The most famous closed door game came on April 28, 2015, an MLB game between the White Sox and the Orioles. It was bumped to a 2:06 p.m. start time behind closed doors due to social unrest in Baltimore. There was a 10 p.m. curfew issued by the city, so it made sense to move the game up and have nobody attend it. My personal favorite moment from this game was legendary broadcaster Gary Thorne talking like a golf announcer during Adam Jones' exciting double off the wall. You should go look it up, it's pretty funny. And now, which brings us to today, the NBA announced that upcoming games will be behind closed doors. All of March Madness will be behind closed doors, as well as soccer games in Italy, and of course, the Grand Sumo tournament is behind closed doors, but I think my boy Hockey Ho is still going to take it, so no worries there. And I would like to issue a warning to all basketball fans. Just be warned that if you don't like the sound of basketball shoes squeaking, you may want to take the necessary measure to avoid that. Maybe mute the TV or just avoid all the games as best you can. And finally, if you're still watching this for whatever reason and somehow want my medical advice, which I know you do, just remember to wash your hands, bathe regularly, good diet and exercise can't hurt, and avoid public places as best you can. Alright everybody, just stay safe, be on the lookout for this channel, 1 video per week. Alright, Paradise, play us off.